You mentioned you have some children.
I have a child.
A child?
Yes.
And how old?
She is 15.
Okay, good luck with that.
Yes, I welcome all prayers at this time.
I wanted to get into the
Pray for
kids
me.
because
Oh my goodness, yes.
you do play therapy.
Yes, I'm a registered play therapist.
And I had never studied play therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's off camera. You mentioned play therapy actually goes all the way back to Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a play therapist is a therapist who works specifically with children. And play therapy is doing therapy with children in their own language. So you don't want to do play therapy with a kid where you go, so tell me, how do you feel about, your situation, your problem? Children, their cognitive abilities are not that developed.
And we're talking about children that might be as young as 3.
Exactly.
Up to,
Yeah.
well, you can go many ages.
You can go with play therapy. You can go all through adulthood, but play therapy is starting at 3 and going till 13 or so. And so, children, their cognitive abilities are not developed, and so children are still speaking the language of symbols. That's their language that they speak. And so play therapy is where you communicate with children in the language they speak, which is symbology. So in a play therapy session, the child comes into the playroom, and in the playroom there are all manner of toys or a sandbox that can be where the child can project their unconscious material or their psychic conflict onto. So all kinds of toys that are good for projection, like sand, like art supplies, like puppets, things like that. And I specialized in sand tray therapy. So I would have a big sandbox and then thousands and thousands of figures that a child can make worlds with. Trees and rocks and houses and people and wizards and dragons and dinosaurs and all kinds of things. So the child would come in and I say to the child, so first of all, so the idea is, a play therapy, that if a child comes into an environment where they have unconditional positive acceptance and they are allowed to lead the play, that their unconscious mind will naturally have them gravitate toward whatever toys or materials will best allow their unconscious mind to project out.
And it's very important. I want to just re-emphasize the point. The therapist isn't leading in any way. Whereas if I was to get down on the floor with one of my grandkids, frequently the adult is trying to get the grandchild to engage.
Correct.
Whereas in this one, it's more, you're the subordinate.
I'm the follower.
Partner. Yeah.
They're the guide.
And you've got to run it like that.
Exactly. And so let's say we're talking about let's say the child gravitates to the sand tray. And then I go, well, awesome, would you be willing to make a world in there? Anything can be happening in the world, anything could be in the world, anything could be happening. It's your world. And so the kid then will create a world in there. And I have seen some of the most incredible creations, worlds. And then I say, oh, well, tell me about this world. What's happening? And then they tell me what's happening in the world. And invariably, what's happening in that world is what's going on within them. Now, I only ask them questions about the figures in their world. how does that figure feel about having been buried like that? How do they feel about having been buried like that? Oh, they don't like it. Somebody buried them. Oh my. And so, are they wanting to stay buried, or do they wish someone would come unbury them? Well, they wish someone would unbury them. Oh, like who? And so now the kid goes and finds another figure. This character, you know. And so as the child recreates their psychic conflict, whatever that is, as they play it out in the sand tray or the puppets or the art or whatever, what children automatically, unconsciously do is they will change the ending of the story such that they receive what they didn't get emotionally or psychologically. So they'll change the ending of the story where they get the help they need, or they get the understanding that they needed, or whatever it was. As a child plays out the unmet need in such a way that they get their needs met, and they did it themselves, healing naturally occurs in their psyche. And you didn't do anything, but just, you know, but just be an observer, ask some good questions, and you know, and gave them unconditional acceptance for whatever they were expressing.
Perfect.
So that's how healing happens with children in play therapy.
Now, especially when it works very well, especially if there's any kind of a trauma or abuse,
Yes.
obviously shows up.
Yes, indeed.
But play therapy can be used for ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Absolutely.
And that's a little bit more, in my opinion, intricate in that it's really bringing in the parents a lot more. And you were talking about the healing the guilt around
Yes,
that. Most
the
people
shame.
ordinarily wouldn't think that guilt or shame would be connected with it. But
Right.
talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah. In the play therapy, let's say a kid comes in with, like you mentioned, ADHD. So where you wouldn't, you know, you would think, well, how does a child heal? You know, if a kid comes in with ADHD, how does play therapy help that kid? Okay.
You wouldn't ordinarily think
Exactly. You would think,
naturally.
it's better for trauma. It's more useful, but not the case, because kids who, for instance, come in with issues around ADD, you've got one problem called the ADD, and then you've got a whole host of complicating issues around it that tend to be sourced from shame. So they have one problem here, but it's covered up and made more complicated and obscure by the shame that comes unconsciously from the parents or the school or just our culture in general, if the child doesn't seem to fit in. So with the play therapy, then any shame that child has taken on around that gets to get played out, right? And as they get to play it out and reconfigure their conflict such that they are innocent, then the shame is able to be healed around it. And then the core problem, like say the ADD, comes clear, and ways of handling it become also clear. Like, hey, how about we just do your schooling differently like this? Or hey, how about we do some different parenting techniques like this? But usually the main problem around ADD comes in around the kid feels shame around being different, or the kid feels shame because the parents are frustrated and don't know how to handle it and unconsciously reinforce shame.
So you have to work with the parents as well.
And I always work with the parents. I typically say to my parents, I'll work with your kid if you will also work with me. Because, the parents truly are the first line here. And so I'll work with the parents, and then I work with the kid, and then I have the parents come into the playroom and I teach them how to do what I do for their own kids.
And you mentioned the huge benefit of just once a week in essence, at your home, setting up a play therapy
Sessions.
session scenario, and you can teach the parents how to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have the parents come in and I have them be the kid in the playroom, and I go, okay, now
You put them through their paces
I sure
there?
do. And then so I teach them how to follow their kid's lead, which most parents are like, oh, no. Most parents don't have good practice or experience letting the child lead the play, and asking the kids questions. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that puppet's feeling right now. I wonder why he feels sad. So I teach the parents how to mirror just the kid's emotion. I see that this figure feels sad, or that figure feels angry. And I teach the parents how to mirror the emotion and how to let the child lead the play. Teaching the parents that if you'll just follow the lead and only ask questions and let them lead the play, your child will show it all to you. They'll show you what their fear is. They'll show you what their conflict is. They'll show you where their shame is. They'll show you what they need. But you have to be able and willing to follow, listen, and only ask questions.